Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, supported by Cole, here with Benji Naesen on a Friday Arvo for a pretty leisurely Giro stage 13 from Ravenna to Verona, 199 kilometres, about 0 metres altitude gain, to an intermediate sprint for Ciclamino, and then for bonus seconds, Sagan is in the Ciclamino jersey, and this was going to be a bunch sprint. No questions, no ifs, no buts, even though Cavagna tried some echelon action with like 50 Ks to go. He couldn't fool me. If you're watching Cavagna trying to do that with 50 Ks to go, you're a true degenerate. Respect to you, but get some help. I think. No offense. Offense intended. Okay. In all seriousness, the break went with the familiar suspects, Rivi, Marengo, and Pello. Their DSs only want to put them in breakaways that have a 0% chance of success. Love it from Androni. I mean, what are they doing with Pello? It actually is a waste of his talent. He's very strong, and Savio puts him in these breaks. It's a waste of time. But He's going, yeah, what's he going for? There is some method to the madness, right?
Yes. There's a huge method undergoing all of this, and it's the fact that there's this classification with the amount of kilometers you go into a breakaway. And who is in the break today? Marengo and Pello. Who is at the top of that standing? Marengo and Pello. I think they both care about the standing. They saw that the other one went, and they followed him. And
is it an official RCS thing? It's
an
like
official RCS thing.
Really?
And as an extra to that, Pello actually dropped Marengo for a tiny bit in the race to try and gain even more kilometers on his closest competitor. Yeah, we don't really care, but it's really fun to see people play. To see that classification even play a role in the Giro is just funny. But like you said, nothing happens in the stage. I don't really have too much to offer. Then the break was caught, and Cavagna had some fun, and that's about it. And we went for the mass sprint in the end. And to be honest, we had a few candidates yesterday that we mentioned. You said Nizzolo, I said Viviani. I was thinking this morning perhaps Groenewegen might make his comeback or something.
Yeah, we didn't talk about him enough. We missed out talking about Groenewegen yesterday on a stage like this. Serious candidate. Go on.
Yes, and I think when it comes to the teams that were trying to take control, it was Quebecer that took control quite early indeed, with 2.8 to 2 kilometers to go. And if you've got
6
three
Ks.
people, was it 6K already? Okay.
6 Ks to go. There's a lot of road furniture. There's some roundabouts, the usual stuff after a sleepy day. They came to the front really early with Campanar's full train. They had, I think, Volscheid on the back wheel, marking Nizzolo's back wheel in the European Champs jersey. DSM with Nicolas Roche were moving up, I presume, for Max Canter super early as well. And they ended up nothing happening for them at all either. I think he came 8th. Bernal and Ineos moved up. I mean, Ghana, a man on his own, a lead out of his own, he moved up Bernal. They're going for the 3 Ks to go, just trying to keep Bernal safe. There's a choke point, actually about, I think, 3.5 Ks to go, where it really narrows and squeezes them in. Ghana was making sure Bernal's front 10 wheels going through that. They get to the 3 Ks and Bernal disappears now that he's safe with the 3 kilometer rule. And yeah, Quebecer moves it up really early, but then disappeared. And you've got, I think, 2 Ks to go. Crunch time. Bora are moving up Sagan late. They got 2 lead-out men. Oss, their last man. You've got the Jumbo-Visma train moving up with, I think, Affini as well. No David Decker. Is David Decker? He's abandoned, right, Benji?
Did he? I didn't know that.
Did he? He didn't. He's just doing lead-out duties. Yeah. I'm surprised. Okay, wow. Well, given how the sprint played out, I thought he must have abandoned. So we've got a pretty strong lead out. Jos van Enden, Decker, and Affini for Groenewegen. That's pretty solid. And they moved up early. And at 1K to go, Giacomo Nizzolo is nowhere to be seen. They've done all the work leading him out really early. Bora on the front with 2 riders. Sagan on the back of Dylan Groenewegen. Viviani's moved up late, as Cofidis have tried to do. So, yeah, were you concerned, Benji, when you saw Cofidis really deep, but with 2 lead-out men for Viviani at like 1,500 meters to go? Were you like, not a problem, though, Consonni will move him up late?
I was thinking so. I was thinking that they were looking pretty okay in that. I think that for the entirety of the Giro so far, that was their memo, trying to come up late into the last kilometer and then moving past the sprinters with at least Consonni still ahead of Viviani. And I think they tried to do the same today. And it didn't really work out. They tried to move up early on I think 800 meters to go on the right side of the road. Then there was a roundabout, not a complete roundabout, but like a straight one where you just go just around the roundabout and continue onwards. Yes, indeed. And I feel like Consani was already the last man ahead of Viviani at that point. And if that is the case, then it's going to be troublesome to make that exact move of trying to close down in the last 300, 400 meters. But there was actually something interesting in that, because we saw that Jumbo indeed was at the front for a majority of the time. And then suddenly one of their riders went clear.
Eduardo Affini, there's this slight right-hand bend. As Benji said, you can keep pedaling through it. Nizzolo with 900 meters to go. I'm going to count it, include the screenshot. He's like 12 wheels back, and there's a bunch of runners in front of him. He's not on Viviani's wheel. He's not on Groenewegen, Sagan, or Gaviria's wheel. Terrible position. Horrific position with 900 meters for Nizzolo, and I was thinking, here we go again, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. He was on Viviani's wheel. I thought he was going to move up with Consani's move. He lost that wheel, and it's tough to move up from there if everyone leads out normally, but that's not what happened. Affini jumps ahead of the Bora last two lead-out men into that right-hander, and he kicks really hard out of that corner. I think he was supposed to be doing a hard lead out for Groenewegen. He said in the post-race interview, Os loses his wheel. I don't think intentionally. I just don't think he could keep the wheel, because it doesn't really benefit. I don't see how that benefits him or Sagan in any way to let Affini go up the road. And he eventually, with 500 meters to go, we've got Affini. I mean, this is the guy. He came second in the opening TT, Benji?
Yes, correct.
He's looking in magic form, Eduardo Affini, better than in years, and a strong guy. And he's got a huge gap, massive speed difference, because Os was the man left to pull, and Os flicks behind him. And who's there? It's either Dekker or Groenewegen, and they say, no, thank you, we're not closing down Affini. Eventually, Molano pulls for a little bit for Gaviria, and then Gaviria jumps at like 350, 400 maybe. It was really long trying to close down Affini. Nizzolo, he's moved up in all this chaos with Os failing to close that gap and the speed slowing. He's moved up on the right-hand side, Giacomo Nizzolo, all on his own. He'd had Campenas and Volscheid weren't able to do anything for him in the last 1,500 meters, pretty much, despite, I think Volscheid dropped his chain, and Campenas, he finished 20th. I just literally don't know what he's doing in the lead-out. Makes no sense what he's doing. And Nizzolo moves up on the right-hand side, slips onto Gaviria's wheel. Gaviria gapped Sagan and Groenewegen. That's an important point, that they let his wheel go off his initial burst, and Nizzolo was strong enough to jump onto that slingshot across, then bridging across to Affini. We're now into the last 100 meters, gets to the slipstream of Eduardo Affini, comes out of it. He's gapped everyone off his wheel and wins at a canter, beating the other sprinters by bike lengths, and Eduardo Affini coming second. I'm just looking at the finishing shot. Easy post up for Giacomo Nizzolo, taking his first Giro d'Italia stage win after 11 second places, after being first across the line in 2016 and being relegated. What a win from him, Benji. How impressed were you from this performance?
It was a really impressive sprint, because you mentioned every detail. He went across everybody in the lead up towards the last 200 meters. He rode very tactically in the last 150 meters, thinking, where should I use my draft? Let's try and follow Gaviria on the left first, then move towards Affini on the right of the road, and then at the right moment, just swing past Affini to the line. Affini honestly held on a very long time.
Crazy
the man
strong.
Really has an engine. Yeah. I think I'd love to see him try this on the Champs-Élysées for meme purposes. But to be fairly honest, Nizzolo was just plainly better than everyone today. Viviani was caught up on the other side of the road, decided to try and come past on the opposite side of Nizzolo, but that ain't going to work if everybody's next to that barrier, so that wasn't going to work in any way. And I think that made him completely out of contention, for example. I don't think I really noticed Groenewegen that much in the last section. Was he even in the top 10 in the end?
He was just following wheels. That's pretty sure. 10th. Just trying to follow wheels. Before we get to the top 10 results, I want to mention our show partner, Le Col. They've just hit 500,000 riders in their Strava club. If you want to join their Strava club, the link is in the bio down below. They always have discounts and challenges for you to get involved with Le Col. I know we have our discount code LRCP20 for all Le Col kit. They have at the moment, the Project Aero Strava Challenge, which is starting, I think, today. Record 300 active minutes, complete a 160k ride in under 6 hours. either of those two things for 2 chances to win the complete Lecole McLaren Project Era Collection, which is valued at, I think, over €1,000, if my maths is correct. So well worth joining that if you're someone who gets in the Ks, or maybe it's an opportunity to get them in yourself. And thanks to Lecole for supporting the podcast. But here's the full top 10 results for the Giro d'Italia Stage 13. Nizzolo first, Affini second, Sagan third, Cimolai fourth, Gaviria fifth, Oldani sixth. Not doing a bad job, Oldani for Lotto with no Ewan. Pascal on seventh, Cantor eighth, Viviani ninth, and Groenewegen 10th. I think Nizzolo got quite lucky today, and he deserves that luck. He's had both some bad luck. His lead out I thought was terrible, and he was so deep, and he got lucky that Gaviria panicked and jumped, got that slipstream. He's a slingshot to Affini, but you get bad luck, you get good luck. On another day, he might have been relegated in 2016 or whenever it was, and he had the best legs of anyone. And speaking of that lead out, Benji, that's what I want to talk about now. Do you think with a better lead out, he might even be someone racking up 3-4 Grand Tour wins a year? And do you know any teams with a good lead out that might need someone like him?
Yes. I think
the most leading question ever.
I think if you put a good lead out, like, for example, let's say hypothetically a Mercu ahead of him, then he can be in a consistent position to be competitive 90% of the sprints, just like Bennett is whenever Mercu does it. So that is the ideal situation for a Quickstep. We know that the Koenig is going to stop sponsoring Quickstep next year, so I'm already calling them Quickstep again to get into the moment. But if Quickstep next year needs a sprinter, they're looking now at Sagan, and I honestly, if we look at purely the performance qualities, I think that Nizzolo is a better rider for them to sign than Sagan is, because in the sprints, Nizzolo is a better sprinter than Sagan on the flat. Sprinter.
It's clear.
Yes, on the small cobble terrains, like for example again Dwevelgem or Kuurne Brussel Kuurne, I believe that Nizzolo is a better candidate than Sagan.
Yeah, with a strong
Once
team.
we go to the actual cobble races, I think that Sagan is a better option. But they've got such a good cobble team anyway. They've got Asgreen, they've got Alaphilippe, like Seneschal, whoever. Well, they haven't all re-signed yet, but I think 2 of those have re-signed. And they're probably going to re-sign even more people. I think Ballerini re-signed, but I'm not actually sure about it. So a lot of people are re-signing of that, and they're going to have people for the cobble. So that's not the area where they need people. The area where they need people is to have a sprinter on the flat that can be one of the best, like Sam Bennett is.
Yep.
And I think Nizzolo can replace that very, very perfectly. I think that Nizzolo has a 10% higher potential if he has a genius lead out ahead of him, and the Koenig can offer that. And that's kind of my take on that. I think that if you consider sponsor value of Sagan and so forth, this could be a very lengthy discussion. I don't know. What's your take on that aspect?
Well, I mean, for pure sporting performance, if you're signing Sagan for the cobbled races, you're giving someone €2 million to be your third best cobbled rider. Like, that's with a 50% discount on his current salary or more. I know the sponsors might chip in for it, etc. But yeah, they need a bunch sprinter. Jakobsen, we want him. We're the first people to want him to be back next year, and we rated him so highly pre-crash. But like, realistically, we don't know what condition he's going to be in next year. I'm not sure Lefebvre can bet the farm that he's going to be top 3 best sprinters in the world by 2022. Of the people available out of contract, Nizzolo is by far the best sprinter available.
Cavendish.
Okay, yeah, Benji. I mean, Cavendish and Greipel, they're back, baby. But yeah, for actual Grand Tours, Nizzolo, I think, is the man. And some, as Benji said, the light cobbled races, I think, yeah, he's a serious candidate. And he's just so consistent too. And sprinting's just about, if you're there up in the front, getting enough opportunities, being dropped off at 170 to go, it doesn't matter that, yes, we say it all the time. We've said it about 10 times this year. Ewan's the quickest man. We think Ewan's the quickest man in the world. Ewan hasn't won that many sprints this year. He got it right twice in the Giro, but he loses a lot too. And not just loses, but can be like 10th or 12th. We saw it in the Giro, the Stage Merlier one. Ewan was nowhere, right, Benji? Because if the lead out doesn't work, you can't contest no matter how much better you are. And the Quickstep lead out puts you right there day in, day out, and that's why they win so many races. So yeah, I think Nizzolo is a good chance, and I don't think he'd be that expensive either. I think he'd be cheaper than Sam Bennett, Benji. I mean, Sam Bennett won the green jersey, cleaning up Tour de France stages left and right. I think Nizzolo would be a discount on him. But we got another topic, which we'll talk about after I preview stage 14. I just want to, this is the Cittadella Monte Zoncolan stage, 206 Ks long. We've got two main climbs for Giro Monterest, 10.5K, 6%. Bit of a warm-up climb. I think the average gradients, there's some steep Ks in there, but I don't expect any action there. And the stage is all about Zoncolan, 14 Ks, 8.5%. It's a different side. I think still difficult. It's the last 3 Ks that are hard. The first 10 Ks, eyeballing it, 7%, 6.5% average gradient. The last 3 Ks, 12.6, 12.6, 13.3. So it averages 9% in total, but the last 3 Ks is where it's all at. I called Carthy for this stage a couple of weeks ago. I still feel pretty good about that. I think he's looking in pretty good condition, and I think it's going to be Carthy and Vlasov. I think Bernal will be strong, but I think he won't. I think there'll be small GC time gaps. They'll just be worrying about the steep section. I don't actually think this will be that exciting a stage, to be honest. I think it'll be just a grind in the last 3 Ks, and I think Bernal will just ride his own pace and allow Carthy or Vlasov to have a 10, 12-second lead. Probably Carthy. I think Vlasov is more likely to mark. How do you see the stage playing out?
I don't think Break wins this. To be honest, God damn it. It's Ineos in the lead.
This Giro.
Like, if there's one stage that someone should try and hammer it, a team should try and hammer it from the peloton and take control to try and get this stage, I'm looking at an Astana or an EF, for example, then I'd call this one. But to be honest, like, why should they pace 100 kilometers to keep the breakaway on 3 minutes if they can just fight out GC 10 minutes behind?
Exactly.
So I don't think it's going to be the peloton, but I would love to see the peloton win this stage. I think that when it comes to the peloton, I'm indeed looking at Angliru last year, because that is kind of the place where we can see these gradients. The problem with this climb is that they're going to wait until the last 3 kilometers, because the last 3 kilometers is the steepest. You know that. And I think for the first portion of the climb in the peloton, you will see Ineos pace until that 3-kilometer section. And at that 3-kilometer section, then somebody will make a move. I think that Vlasov and Carthy are the names that I've been shouting for this stage for a while now. I think I had Vlasov and you have Carthy on the Giro preview selection for this stage. Peloton-wise, I think I agree with that. From the breakaway, that's not going to happen from the breakaway. So if it's a breakaway rider, who are you looking at, for example?
Yeah, who's Mollema? I mean, it's tough. Who is good enough to, because they're going to lose buckets of time in those last 3 Ks, even if they've got a 4-minute gap. Like, if they've been working hard all day, they can crack. It need to be a huge break. I'm looking, Benji. Cepeda's the name, but we're hoping he does something. We've been saying him all the last month. Don't see it really. Maida's not there anymore. I don't know. I have a feeling that who is a good enough climber? Ina Rubio, Antonio Pedrero.
Then Martin in the break is too close in GC, right?
Well, that's the topic we're going to talk about in a second, Benji. But I think we're going to talk about Tam Martin's comments the other day. But I think what I think will happen
needs to be in the break.
I know Pedrero and Co in the break.
There.
Yeah, you'd think surely Villela. What I would like to happen. This is what I'd like to happen, and what I think Ineos should do. I'm not sure whether it will happen. I think Bernal should go for the jugular tomorrow. I think the way the Zoncolan climb is and the way this stage is set up is perfect for Bernal and Ineos, because they don't have the high mountains riders, but the hardest part is in the last 3 Ks where he can do it himself. For Giro Monterest, 10K, 6%, Ganna can do that and maybe even make it over with the group. He can then pace the valley afterwards. There's a little roller afterwards. Maybe even Puccio can do that climb, but they could hit that cat too hard. It's just a long way from the start of the Zoncolan. So maybe they don't even bother. But the base of Zoncolan 6% first K, 7.5%, 7.3%. Ganna can do the first 3Ks, almost gone. You've then got Narvaez, and they need Martinez to do a shift tomorrow as well. If they can somehow have their team pace for the first 9Ks, if I'm Bernal, I just go for the jugular on the last 3Ks and attack if I feel good, because I think no one can go with him if he does go super hard on the Zoncolan and get some real time, like 45 seconds on Vlasov. Vlasov's better than him in the TT. I know we've got harder stages to come, but if you feel good and you go for it. And stage 15 shouldn't be any GC action. And then obviously we've got some the Cortina d'Ampezzo stage is disgusting, but that's not a mountaintop finish. You're going to have to make a gap on Paso Gao. Then there's a descent. It's a hard stage, no doubt. But if you feel good tomorrow, Bernal, I'd say give the orders to pace on the Zoncolan. What percentage chance do you think they have of that happening? That doesn't mean they win, by the way. That just means the break could still win. Do you see that happening? Because they kind of did that on the gravel stages.
I think that strategy would definitely work in his favor. Can he just drop them instantly on that steep section?
100%.
I think so as well, actually, the more I think about it. But can he keep it up till the line? If he makes that move at the start, I would expect him to be able to keep that up. I do think that this might be the point where it's a bit risky to go very early on that steep section. So it kind of depends on where on the steep section you launch with Bernal. Automatically at the bottom.
Vlasov will lead him out. True, Vlasov will lead him out. so Carlton and Vlasov will attack, and maybe he can just counter off them. But I would still make the climb a bit harder if I'm Bernal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
what do you think that Caruso can do on this stage, and perhaps even in the coming week? Because Caruso's in the top 3 of GC. He's been under the radar for this entire race, attacking on that stage 9 in the middle of the stage with that rocket attack that eventually Mohoric in that breakaway crashed out. He's honestly been riding really, really good. He's got the time trial on the last stage to take a minute perhaps on Bernal. He's currently outside of a minute on Bernal, obviously. But do you think he can sustain that podium place even on Zoncolan? I think Zoncolan, honestly,
I don't think so. I think Buchmann and Simon Yates are coming. Simon Yates looking very ominous on the Montalcino stage. He had good legs that day, that's for sure. And what about him for the win tomorrow? Do Bike Exchange say the last 7 stages are starting? It's time to get serious, and they pace for. Do they pace for Simon Yates, or does Simon Yates actually go for the stage? I mean, they've got Nieve, Nick Schultz, Hanger, Hepburn, Jules Jensen, underrated team, I think, could be an option, but we just don't know how
they don't need those riders on the climbing section, so they can use them on the flat section to keep that gap to the breakaway on 3 minutes and try to go for the stage.
Definitely.
That's the kind of team that could do that, but looking at that team, would you use them on the Zoncolan stage if you've got the benefit of the last week and a half where Yates is kind of on the background of the GC riders a lot? And for example, on the Montalcino stage, everybody was talking about Remco, about Bernal, and Yates disappeared 5 times, was dropped on the first gravel section, came back, and then suddenly was hanging between that group. A lot happened with Yates, and he actually was definitely back by the end of the stage. But it looks like he's getting a bit of an incognito mode in this Giro so far.
Yeah, I think he's one to watch out for tomorrow. The man we mentioned should be winning this from the breakaway. He'd be if he was 14 minutes back on GC, I'd be picking him to win this stage 100%. Dan Martin, the Irishman on Israel Startup Nation, and we're a bit late to this topic, but I guess there's been no GC action at all the last 2 days. And at the moment, Dan Martin is 7 minutes, I believe, back on GC. Now, that is the worst distance to be back on GC because, especially as he is a sort of seen as a GC threat, because he's not going to be allowed to get in a 10, 12-minute break because Trek and DSM and Bora, they don't want him to come back to be 3 minutes back on GC or things like that. So they're not going to allow him in a break. But he's also not in GC contention if he stays in the GC group. Dan Martin's not making 7 minutes back. So it's just the worst. It's the worst of both worlds. And he finished in the group in the Bagno di Romagna stage yesterday. He didn't lose any more time. He lost all that time on the Montalcino stage. And after that stage, you remember on that stage, did he drop in the first Dorado section when Ganna paced Benji? Is that what happened?
Yeah, he was completely off on the first Dorado section already. It looked like I barely saw him at the front of the race going into that section even. I think that he seemed to make the decision for himself to play it safer, and that's very risky for GC. Obviously, if you want to survive that section, if you want to do the best of your capabilities to try and get over these Cerrado sections with the front people, you need to be at the front and going into the Cerrado sections, and you need to make sure that you try and follow as much as possible, I'm guessing.
I got a light roast ready, Benji. Just a light roast, just
okay.
Not brewed too high at altitude. He had a few comments after the stage, Dan Martin. He said, "I told my wife this morning that I won't crash. So for me personally, cycling is not worth the risk." I can't disagree with that. I almost think it's irrational, the risks these guys take for the money they are paid. Life-altering crashes happen regularly. I can't disagree with that. If someone doesn't want to take the risks on the downhill, I certainly wouldn't. He said, "I had guys crashing all around me on the first section of gravel, so I just did my own pace. I nearly came back, but my license is road cycling, so it's not my thing. Fair play to the guys who are at the front, but I just didn't want to take the risks today, and that's it. The cycling fan in me thinks this is a beautiful stage, but I don't have much experience. No excuses, just didn't feel like taking the risks." Now, again, I've said, if you don't want to take risks, that's fine. But what the fuck were you doing for the first 10 stages of the Giro, Dan Martin? Is this a surprise to you that there was gravel, 35 kilometers of it on Montalcino? Like, we knew this was coming months ago. Benji and I recorded a clips thing for Bernal saying, Bernal's going to dominate this stage because it's so nasty. Like 2 months ago, everyone knew this was coming. If you didn't want to take the risks, which fair enough, when Ganna's smashing it, and I don't know how that's a surprise to you that there was going to be some attacks on the gravel sections, then why'd you ride for GC for the first 10 stages and have your team do that? And then after you've lost 7, and why are you protecting a 7-minute gap? Like, surely when you let it go, you're like, oh, okay, GC's done. But let some more time go out to 15, 20 minutes so you can at least go on a break. Instead, he's finishing in the GC group on Bagno di Romagna stage. What is that achieving? So, I mean, it's one of those things where Ciccone, I'm going to pre-roast Ciccone. I'm telling you, he's going to lose big time week 3 and win. And it's going to be like, why didn't you go for the stages in week 1? I have no idea how Dan Martin approached this Giro. Emmanuel Buchmann, he did Strada Bianca for the first time this year, preparing specifically for the Montalcino stage, one would think. And I know Dan Martin's saying it was chaotic, and I certainly would have been dropped. But apart from Remco, it was a huge group. And Remco's a guy that's crashed on a downhill and doesn't have that much road cycling experience. All the other GC contenders, some less experienced than Dan Martin, were perfectly fine in that group and went to the finish pretty much together, apart from Bernal's late attack. So I don't think it was that hectic, and I wouldn't say there was carnage on Montalcino either. So, yeah, I think just a weird decision from Dan Martin that he just decided that morning, no, not for me. What you got any further thoughts on that, Benji? Am I being too harsh?
No, not really. I think that you've actually got a good point. If you're prepping the entire GC of this Giro in the first 10 stages like that, and then you come to Montalcino and you decide on the first Cerrado section, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not even going to risk taking these corners riskily. They're going to try and bring me back after every Cerrado section. You're basically throwing away the GC that the entire team has been fighting for 10 stages. And that's exactly what happened. Can't say anything more than that. He just lost a lot of time. And even after that stage, he now stays close in GC.
He can't go on the break. He can't go on the break.
Because he's too close, yeah. And
it's Formula 2.
Yeah, Formula as well. But Formula, I think, had a mechanical in Montalcino, which, he can't do much about. But still, he maybe should have decided afterwards that he should have changed his way and should have chosen to go for the breakaway stage instead. I think that would work. I think there's a lot of stages that fit Formula in the last week as well. So definitely a candidate for those kind of stage if he had the time behind necessary to go in the breakaway. And I think in the last week, 9 minutes behind is going to be good enough to get in the breakaway. we're moving into that, but not in the early days of that. I don't think on tomorrow's stage, for example, then Martin is going to get away. I just don't see it happening.
I think maybe he'll be allowed to attack out of the GC group, I guess, but I just think people will follow him. And I get it. If you come to like the last stage, a crazy mountain stage, it's raining and sleeting, and the UCI commissars don't neutralize it when they're supposed to, and there's just this crazy hairy descent that would have been okay in the dry, but then in the wet it's completely treacherous, and you're like, I'm taking this easy because I don't want to go off the side of the mountain. You can't really prepare for that. But yeah, we knew this was coming. I think preparing for the Montalcino stage is just a basic part of going for GC, and you should have been reconning it and riding it. But that's all from the men's Giro d'Italia big GC stage, hopefully tomorrow. And now on to our women's Vuelta a Burgos coverage, stages 1 and 2.